Hello and welcome to day 100 of the Not Alone Today chronological Bible reading plan. Today we're reading Psalms 77 to 79 using the New King James Version.
Psalm 77. To the chief musician, to Jeduthun, a psalm of Asaph. I cried out to God with my voice, to God with my voice, and he gave ear to me. In the day of my trouble I sought the Lord. My hand was stretched out in the night without ceasing. My soul refused to be comforted. I remembered God and was troubled. I complained and my spirit was overwhelmed.
You hold my eyelids open. I am so troubled that I cannot speak. I have considered the days of old, the years of ancient times. I call to remembrance my song in the night. I meditate within my heart, and my spirit makes diligent search.
Will the Lord cast off forever? And will he be favorable no more? Has his mercy ceased forever? Has his promise failed forevermore? Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has he in anger shut up his tender mercies?
And I said, This is my anguish, but I will remember the years of the right hand of the Most High. I will remember the works of the Lord. Surely I will remember your wonders of old. I will also meditate on all your work and talk of your deeds. Your way, O God, is in the sanctuary. Who is so great a God as our God? You are the God who does wonders. You have declared your strength among the peoples. You have with your arm redeemed your people, the sons of Jacob and Joseph.
The waters saw you, O God. The waters saw you and they were afraid. The depths also trembled. The clouds poured out water. The sky sent out a sound. Your arrows also flashed about. The voice of your thunder was in the whirlwind. The lightnings lit up the world. The earth trembled and shook. Your way was in the sea, your path in the great waters, and your footsteps were not known. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron.
Psalm 78, a contemplation of Asaph. Give ear, O my people, to my law. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, telling to the generation to come the praises of the Lord, and his strength and his wonderful works that he has done.
For he established a testimony in Jacob, and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children, that the generation to come might know them, the children who would be born, that they may arise and declare them to their children, that they may set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments, and may not be like their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that did not set its heart aright, and whose spirit was not faithful to God.
The children of Ephraim, being armed and carrying bows, turned back in the day of battle. They did not keep the covenant of God. They refused to walk in his law and forgot his works and his wonders that he has shown them.
Marvelous things he did in the sight of their fathers in the land of Egypt, in the field of Zoan. He divided the sea and caused them to pass through, and he made the waters stand up like a heap. In the daytime also he led them with the cloud, and all the night with a light of fire. He split the rocks in the wilderness and gave them drink in abundance like the depths. He also brought streams out of the rock and caused waters to run down like rivers.
But they sinned even more against him by rebelling against the Most High in the wilderness. And they tested God in their hearts by asking for the food of their fancy. Yes, they spoke against God. They said, Can God prepare a table in the wilderness? Behold, it struck the rock so that the waters gushed out, and the streams overflow. Can he give bread also? Can he provide meat for his people?
Therefore the Lord heard this and was furious. So a fire was kindled against Jacob, and anger also came up against Israel, because they did not believe in God and did not trust in his salvation. Yet he had commanded the clouds above and opened the doors of heaven, had rained down manna on them to eat and given them of the bread of heaven. Men ate angels' food. He sent them food to the full.
He caused an east wind to blow in the heavens, and by his power he brought in the south wind. He also rained meat on them like the dust, feathered fowl like the sand of the seas, and he let them fall in the midst of their camp, all around their dwellings. So they ate and were filled, for he gave them their own desire. They were not deprived of their craving, but while their food was still in their mouths, the wrath of God came against them, and he slew the stoutest of them, and struck down the choice men of Israel.
In spite of this, they still sinned, and did not believe in his wondrous works. Therefore their days he consumed in futility, and their years in fear.
When he slew them, then they sought him, and they returned and sought earnestly for God. Then they remembered that God was their rock, and the Most High their Redeemer. Nevertheless, they flattered him with their mouth, and they lied to him with their tongue, for their heart was not steadfast with him, nor were they faithful in his covenant. But he, being full of compassion, forgave their iniquity, and did not destroy them. Yes, many a time he turned his anger away, and did not stir up all his wrath. For he remembered that they were but flesh, a breath that passes away and does not come again.
How often they provoked him in the wilderness and grieved him in the desert. Yes, again and again they tempted God and limited the Holy One of Israel. They did not remember his power the day when he redeemed them from the enemy, when he worked his signs in Egypt and his wonders in the field of Zoan, turned their rivers into blood and their streams that they could not drink. He sent swarms of fly among them which devoured them, and frogs which destroyed them. He also gave their crops to the caterpillar and their labor to the locust. He destroyed their vines with hail and their sycamore trees with frost. He also gave up their cattle to the hail and their flocks to the fiery lightning. He cast on them the fierceness of his anger, wrath, indignation, and trouble, by sending angels of destruction among them. He made a path for his anger. He did not spare their soul from death, but gave their life over to the plague, and destroyed all the firstborn in Egypt, the first of their strength in the tents of Ham. But he made his own people go forth like sheep, and guided them in the wilderness like a flock. And he led them on safely so that they did not fear. But the sea overwhelmed their enemies, and he brought them to his holy border, this mountain which his right hand had acquired. He also drove out the nations before them, allotted them an inheritance by survey, and made the tribes of Israel dwell in their tents.
Yet they tested and provoked the Most High, and did not keep his testimonies, but turned back and acted unfaithfully like their fathers. They were turned aside like a deceitful bow. For they provoked him to anger with their high places, and moved him to jealousy with their carved images. When God heard this, he was furious, and greatly abhorred Israel, so that he forsook the tabernacle of Shiloh, the tent he had placed among men, and delivered his strength into captivity, and his glory into the enemy's hand. He also gave his people over to the sword, and was furious with his inheritance. The fire consumed their young men, and their maidens were not given in marriage. Their priests fell by the sword, and their widows made no lamentation.
Then the Lord awoke us from sleep like a mighty man who shouts because of wine, and he beat back his enemies. He puts them to a perpetual reproach.
Moreover, he rejected the tent of Joseph, and did not choose the tribe of Ephraim, but chose the tribe of Judah, Mount Zion, which he loved. And he built his sanctuary like the earth, which he has established forever. He also chose David his servant, and took him from the sheepfolds. From following the ewes that had young, he brought him to shepherd Jacob his people, and Israel his inheritance. So he shepherded them according to the integrity of his heart, and guided them by the skillfulness of his hands.
Psalm 79, a psalm of Asaph. O God, the nations have come into your inheritance. Your holy temple they have defiled, they have laid Jerusalem in heaps. The dead bodies of your servants they have given as food for the birds of the heavens, the flesh of your saints to the beasts of the earth. Their blood they have shed like water all around Jerusalem, and there was no one to bury them. We have become a reproach to our neighbors, a scorn and derision to those who are around us.
How long, Lord, will you be angry forever? Will your jealousy burn like fire? Pour out your wrath on the nations that you do not know, that do not know you, on the kingdoms that do not call your name. For you have devoured Jacob and laid waste his dwelling place.
Oh, do not remember for my iniquities against us. Let your tender mercies come speedily to meet us. For we have been brought very low. Help us, O God of our salvation, for the glory of your name, and deliver us, and provide atonement for our sins for your name's sake. What should the nations say? Where is their God? Let there be known among the nations in our sight the avenging of the blood of your servants which has been shed.
Let the groaning of the prisoner come before you, according to the greatness of your power. Preserve those who are appointed to die, and return to our neighbors sevenfold into their bosom their reproach with which they have reproached you, O Lord.
So we, your people and the sheep of your pasture, will give you thanks forever. We will show forth your praise to all generations. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Just a quick summary of the 3 chapters we've read. In Psalm 77, it's a psalm of Asaph, and it's all about the consoling memory of God's redemptive works. How that Asaph cried to God with his voice and reminded himself who God is and consoled himself in that. In Psalm 78, we read about Asaph's contemplation on God's kindness to the rebellious Israel. This psalm is quite lengthy. We're brought into the history of the rebelliousness of Israel and how then they would change their mind, but change their mind in a superfluous way, and then turn to God. And even though God knows that they're just being flattering to him, he will still forgive their sins. But then again, the Israelites would again be rebellious and provoke God to anger. But God did shepherd them according to the integrity of his heart and guided them by the skillfulness of his hands. Through David, he did so. And then Psalm 79 was quite short. It's also a psalm of Asaph, but this time it's a dirge and a prayer for Israel, how that they were destroyed by their enemies. And it's mostly a supplication to God, whether God will be angry forever, whether his jealousy would burn forever. But then they reminded themselves that they are his people and the sheep of his pasture, and will give thanks to him forever. In Psalm 77, my love, what stood out to you?
A couple of things stood out to me. Verse 3, I remember God and was troubled. I complained and my spirit was overwhelmed. I know that when we speak about, prayer, we say don't complain to God. Just make your requests known in a manner of speaking. Philippians 4:6 says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything, in every situation, with prayer, supplication, and thanksgiving, make your request known unto God. But indeed, there is a genre of prayer that would sound like complaint, not because we are complaining, especially as long as it doesn't end in the place of complaint, but to the point where this psalm also would go on to end, which is to remind ourselves of the faithfulness and the grandeur and the glory of God in that sense. So verse 10 to 12 actually is the fulcrum that stood out to me. After asking all those many questions of, will God cast us off forever as his mercy ceased? Then it gets to verse 10 and says, this is my anguish. These are all the questions I have. But my answer is that I will remember the years of the right hand of the Most High. In other words, I will remember the times that he has shown me his power. Verse 11, I will remember the works of the Lord. Surely I will remember the wonders he has done in old times. I will also meditate on all his works, verse 12, and talk of his deeds. So in remembering, in meditating, in talking, in speaking out loud, God, you did this for me in 1974. You did this for me in 1994. You did this for me in 2004. You did this for me in 2014, 2024. You remind yourself of his faithfulness. And then what seemed like complaint would gradually turn to praise as the last few verses of that psalm indeed was.
Thank you.
What stood out to you, my love?
In my one, verse 6 stood out to me, where it says, I call to remembrance my song in the night. I meditate within my heart, and my spirit makes diligent search. And it's quite instructive in that in the days where we are troubled and we cannot speak, we can call to remembrance things that we have already learned, Bible verses that are stored in our memory. We can meditate them within our hearts whilst our spirit make diligent searches. Because there will be times where words would not come, actions, we can't even act. But then our mind can do that for us. But they can only meditate on things that has been stored in them. So if we do not daily seek him or read his words, nothing will be stored, and then we'll be frantic when our minds are trying to make this diligent search. But if we try as much as possible in the days where we can find him, and just one-liners every day, make it stick in a way in our minds. It could be a widget on our phones where if we open it, we see it every morning or every time we go into our phones. That way, subconsciously, those words are storing in. And then when we need them in the days we're so troubled that we cannot speak, our heart and our spirit will be able to make diligent search of everything we've stored in our minds and bring out what will help us and encourage us.
Thank you. Psalm 78, what stood out to you?
Verse 18 stood out to me, actually 17 to 20 downwards. In that, in 18, we read that the Israelites tested God in their hearts by asking for food of their fancy, and the Holy Spirit drew my attention to that word, food of their fancy. On the one hand, it's okay for us to desire certain things, but on the second hand, if you've been specifically told this is where you should be, anything older than that, any other fancy, is actually outside of the instructions we've been given. And therefore, that fancy on its own can project us away from its covering, same as the Israelites did. So they wanted so much, they wanted meat, and they ate it so much that whilst the meat was in their mouth, God struck them, the food of their desire. And it just stood out to me to be like, it's fine, Anu, for you to want things, to want to desire, oh, I want to do this, I want this career progression, I want the kids to be this, to learn this, to do that. But I have to make sure my desires are brought to him. It shouldn't be a mode of complaining or I shouldn't set it up as an idol, basically, but to make sure that whilst I'm still doing this desire, it's not something that will make the wrath of God come against me, but to be something that helps me to stay steadfast in him, so that when I do indeed turn to God to ask for his help, he would, being full of compassion, forgive my wanderings and help me to realign my desire, so to say, or help me to understand my seasons so that I can apply my heart to wisdom.
Indeed. Thank you. Psalm 78, 3 quick thoughts stood out from that very lengthy psalm. And again, I like that this is one of those psalms that retells their story. Most of these psalms of Asaph retells the history of the Israelites, but this particular one traces it all the way down to David specifically. So it's almost a song that was written in honor of the king while telling the history of the people. And I'm like, okay, Mr. David. But verse 6 says that the generation to come might know them, the children who would be born, that they may arise and declare them to their children. And that's, of course, talking of passing on the faith from one generation to the other. And that reminder just struck me. And then verse 32 and 41, especially 41, talks about, again, the repeated cycle of disobediences and how the Israelites kept tempting God. But it says specifically in verse 41, yes, again and again they tempted God and limited the Holy One of Israel. And it just struck me that with all of God's almightiness, there is such a thing that we can do that can, in a sense, limit him. Of course, in the context of their history, part of how they limited God is they turned a journey that will be 40 days into 40 years. it's not that God couldn't have brought them in 40 days, but by the reason of their disobediences and hard-heartedness, they brought a prolonging to what should have taken much, much shorter. And we see it even in Jesus' day when he went to his own people and they did not receive him. And he could not do many miracles there, despite being the full embodiment of the very Godhead. And lastly, verse 72. He shepherded them according to the integrity of his heart, speaking about David, and the skillfulness of his hands. And those two things, I mean, when I first understood what mentorship means, and the very first person that played the role of a mentor in my life, Professor Adeshegun Fatusi, he had this plaque in his office at Obafemi Awolowo University back in those days, that it's the picture of a tortoise climbing a wall, and it was already on the top of the wall. And the picture had an inscription called the G factor, that the only way a tortoise could have climbed this high wall is because the G factor, the God factor, has brought him there. And when I asked him about it, it led on to a conversation about what are the three things that you can point to. I mean, I don't know whether I asked for three specifically, as, you know, the secret of your success, if I could frame it that way. I can't remember the exact framing I used. And he said, without even thinking twice, he said, competence, character, and the grace of God. And that's what I'm saying here in this very short psalm. The integrity of his heart speaks of his character plus the grace of God, knowing all we know about David. And then the competence comes with the skillfulness of his hands. Be the best at what you are good at. That's competence. But then you also need that character to keep you to the level that your competence will bring you to. And then, of course, besides your competence and your character, you need the grace of God, the G factor, to actually be the covering over it all. Finally, Psalm 79. What stood out to you?
Verse 9. It was our
that's the same one that I highlighted.
The theme of our month for last year.
The motto for the year.
The motto for the year for last year.
Yeah.
Help us, O God, of our salvation, for the glory of your name, and deliver us. And it still comes to my mouth sometimes when we're doing motto for this year. Yes, and then verse 8 also was instructive to me. Let your tender mercies come speedily to meet us.
Indeed.
What about you?
Yeah, like I said, that verse 9 stood out to me again and again. Even sometimes when I know not what to pray for, I just say, help us, O God of our salvation, for the glory of your name, and deliver us. Indeed. I've prayed it literally this morning before we started this recording. That was my first prayer today. And so reading it and getting to that point, like, oh yeah, this is that scripture again. Help us, O God of our salvation, for the glory of your name, and deliver us. Thank you for joining us for day 100, the centenary episode. And yeah, more to come as we journey onwards. Tomorrow we are still going to be in the Psalms, considering Psalms 80 to 83 and then Psalm 88. But still then, just remember,
you're not alone
today. God bless you.
God bless you.